Free at last. In a dramatic turn of events, 3 Americans detained in North Korea returned to U.S. soil. We were there when the president welcomed them. Budget battle. Lawmakers grill the head of Health and Human Services about funding plans, which could include good news for pro-lifers. Help from a higher authority. Cardinal Charles Bo of embattled Myanmar is in Rome and has a request for Pope Francis. Seeing double, a slew of cardinals take over the streets of Rome. On EWTN News Nightly for Thursday, May 10th, 2018. Good evening from Washington, D.C., and thank you to those of you joining us from around the world for news from a Catholic perspective. I'm Lauren Ashburn. June 12th in Singapore. That's when President Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un will meet. It will be the first time a sitting U.S. president and leader of North Korea talk face to face. The announcement came hours after a dramatic welcome home ceremony for 3 American hostages held in the communist nation. Correspondent Mark Irons witnessed the historic homecoming early this morning. He reports from the White House. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening, Lauren. President Trump welcomed the men to Andrews Air Force Base outside Washington at 3 a.m. They are thanking God for their freedom and for those who prayed for their safe return. Now, the president is looking forward to an even bigger diplomatic mission.
A round of applause for a long journey's conclusion. Kim Dong-chol, Tony Kim, and Kim Hak-song, the Americans held captive in North Korea for more than a year, grateful to the president for his role in securing their release. One of the men describes what it's like to be home, saying it's like a dream.
This is a special night for these 3 really great people, and congratulations on being in this country. Thank you.
The president happy to welcome the freed hostages here, but he still wants to accomplish a whole lot more.
My proudest achievement will be, this is a part of it, but will be when we denuclearize that entire peninsula.
The president hopeful he can convince the leader of North Korea to seek peace. But questions remain if Kim Jong-un is serious about suspending his nuclear program and missile test. Clarity could be coming. Today, President Trump announced the details of the first North Korea-U.S. summit talks since the end of the Korean War more than 60 years ago. Today, tweeting, "The highly anticipated meeting between Kim Jong-un and myself will take place in Singapore on June 12th. We will both try to make it a very special moment for world peace."
Singapore is a natural choice for this meeting. It has close diplomatic and defense ties with the U.S., but it's also familiar ground for North Korea. The country has had diplomatic ties with Singapore since 1975. Lauren?
Mark, what can you tell us about how the released hostages are doing tonight?
Well, last night after they landed, they were taken to Walter Reed National Military Medical Center to be evaluated and receive medical treatment before being reunited with their families. Friends and relatives are saying they're grateful they've been released back into the U.S. Lauren?
White House correspondent Mark Irons, thank you. As the Senate considers Gina Haspel's nomination to head the CIA, Senator John McCain, who remains at home in Arizona battling brain cancer, says she does not have his support. He tweets, "I believe Gina Haspel is a patriot who loves our country and has devoted her professional life to its service and defense. However, her role in overseeing the use of torture is disturbing, and her refusal to acknowledge torture's immorality is disqualifying." McCain's decision will certainly influence the debate, but it may not block Haspel's confirmation. She appears to be gaining support. At least one Democrat, Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia, has announced he would vote in her favor. In a budget hearing on Capitol Hill today, the Secretary of Health and Human Services was questioned on a range of issues, including whether the Trump administration would defund abortion giant Planned Parenthood. Capitol Hill correspondent Jason Calvi was inside the hearing. Good evening, Jason.
Lauren, Secretary Azar oversees the Title X program. It provides uninsured and poor people with birth control. Planned Parenthood takes in nearly $60 million every year from this federal program. Pro-life lawmakers and groups want to see that money cut. 151 congressmen, 41 senators, and 86 pro-life leaders, all urging the man charged with protecting the health of Americans to defund the abortion industry. They want to strip Title $10 from healthcare providers who perform or promote abortion. Senator Patty Murray, a Democrat from Washington State, wants to know if Secretary Azar, a Trump nominee, is going to listen.
Mr. Secretary, do you think the federal government should be in the business of telling women which doctors they can and can't see?
So, Senator, we share your prioritization and concern for the Title X program. As you said, in our budget, we've funded it at a level amount, and we want to ensure that that program works for the women and men who are able to make use of it. We want to make sure we've got a robust group of providers that are available.
Secretary Azar also defended his department's expansion of Title X programs to include abstinence and natural family planning.
I don't understand why we are fooling around with something that's been working to address the issue of unplanned pregnancy and particularly teen pregnancy.
The intention was to comply with the statute's mandate that we have a broad range of family planning services, so not just contraception, but natural family planning, which is in fact called out expressly in the statutes.
Lawmakers touched on other topics, including the opioid crisis, e-cigarettes, and the high cost of prescription drugs. I took a look at what the law actually says about Title X funding, and interesting enough, it does explicitly say that natural family planning should be covered. For more on this story, be sure to tune in to EWTN's Pro-Life Weekly tonight. Catherine Hadro will be talking to Senator Roy Blunt of Missouri, who's pushing the administration to defund abortion providers. Lauren?
Capitol Hill correspondent Jason Calvi, thank you. Catholic groups are urging Oklahoma's governor to sign a bill to legally protect faith-based adoption agencies. The head of the state's Catholic Conference says the measure will keep them in business.
These faith-based institutions are being sued or being threatened with lawsuits, forcing them to make a decision between going into a very costly court battle or just simply closing their doors. And so these protections will give them sort of a runway to get into the business and then increase the supply of adopted families.
Farley says he's cautiously optimistic Oklahoma's Republican Governor Mary Fallin will act soon. It's been on her desk for 1 week. Fallin is under pressure to veto it by gay groups. Israel and Iran engage in the most serious military confrontation ever between the two bitter enemies. They traded fire for hours overnight, shooting down missiles and hitting several installations. Correspondent Wyatt Goolsby joins us with the details from the Pentagon. Good evening, Wyatt.
Good evening, Lauren. The United States is defending its ally, Israel, saying the Israelis have the right to defend themselves. This after reports Iran started the confrontation by launching rockets from Syria at Israeli citizens. A rocket barrage, seen in the night skies and heard near the border with Syria. The Israeli military says overnight, Iranian-backed forces launched more than 20 missiles. Most were intercepted by Israel's Iron Dome aerial defense system, resulting in bright and sudden explosion. Syria's military is blaming Israel for the confrontation, calling it an act of aggression, saying Israel's strikes killed 3 people in Syria and wounded 2 others, without saying if any Iranians were among them. Israel says they knocked out several of Iran's military installations in Syria, like a radar station and a weapons storage facility. Iranian media describe the attacks as unprecedented, but there has been no official Iranian response. Residents of the Golan Heights in northeastern Israel hope tensions will settle down, but they're used to the violence.
It's something that we've been experiencing for the past 7 years of the civil war taking place on the other side of the hill behind me. Muslim Arabs slaughtering Muslim Arabs, a very sad situation.
Tensions are high this week following President Trump's decision to pull out of the Iran nuclear deal, a move supported by the Israeli Prime Minister. Iran's closest ally, Russia, is calling the overnight attack an alarming development. The Russian foreign minister warning both Iran and Israel not to do anything else to raise the heightened tension. Israel's prime minister doesn't appear to be listening to Russia's warning. Benjamin Netanyahu saying their strike on Iran's military installations in Syria send a clear message to Syrian President Bashar Assad: do not attack Israel. Lauren?
Wyatt, why are Israel and Iran so hostile toward one another?
Well, Lauren, Israel views Iran as its archenemy. For years, Iran has called for Israel's destruction. They've also supported military groups across the Middle East, including right next door in Syria, where we've been covering. The concern for Israel, though, is not just that Iran might one day acquire a nuclear weapon, but they're also worried that Iran will eventually establish a military presence, a long-term military presence in Syria, which is what they don't want to happen. The U.S., of course, has continued to call Iran the largest state sponsor of terrorism. Lauren?
Correspondent Wyatt Goolsbee reporting from the Pentagon. Thank you, Wyatt. Pentagon officials are releasing new information about October's ambush in Niger that left 4 American service members dead. The final reports cite multiple problems leading to their deaths, including a lack of training and preparation.
If you get to a position in an operation where you're under enemy contact, you need to be able to operate like clockwork without having to speak because you know the drills. And in this particular case, the team did not conduct those basic soldier-level skills.
The report lays out the details of a brutal firefight as 46 American and Nigerian forces battled for their lives against more than 100 ISIS-backed fighters. Military officials say the 4 American special forces carried out repeated acts of bravery before they died. Prince Charles meets the head of the Greek Orthodox Church. The heir to the British throne is on an official visit to Athens. Local media report the Archbishop gave him an icon of the Blessed Virgin. Charles has long been interested in Orthodox Christianity. The former head of the Vatican Bank is on trial for embezzlement. Angelo Caloia and his lawyer face charges pocketing $68 million in Vatican real estate sales. Vatican authorities have frozen $20 million in the defendants' bank accounts. The suspects deny any wrongdoing. Cardinal Charles Bo of Myanmar is in Rome calling on Pope Francis to help end one of the world's longest-running civil wars. Thousands of civilians are living without food and health care and are in fear for their lives. And this includes the Muslim minority Rohingya in his country and that tiny Christian population. Pope Francis visited Myanmar in November of 2015. It was the first time a pope visited the Buddhist nation. This week, the cardinal and other bishops came to Rome asking for more help. Joining us now from Rome is Cardinal Charles Bo. Your Eminence, welcome to the program. Thank you for joining us. You are the first and only cardinal from Myanmar, where Catholics are a tiny minority. Tell us what life is like for Catholics in your country.
Along these past, say, even 500 years, the Catholic Church, though small, have been much respected by the Buddhist communities as well as the other religions. And also at present, especially after the visit of the Pope, much being respected by the government, even as well as the military, and also the Buddhist community, the monks as well, also the Muslim communities have much esteem and hope in us that we make a voice in front of the majority religion, the Buddhist people.
We understand you asked Pope Francis to help organize a special meeting in the Vatican about Myanmar. Now, the Pope visited Myanmar and the violence didn't stop, so what can a meeting achieve?
We have requested the Pope that from the Secretary of State, the international communities of like Myanmar, Bangladesh, Indonesia, Malaysia, the EU and UN communities should organize a conference regarding the Rohingyas, who are 2 million people scattering, going here and there, in and out without having the citizenship, the stateless people. That the Pope said he will try to organize with the Secretary of State so that the international communities will be alerted and what each could contribute for the benefit of these people.
Cardinal, there are hundreds, tens of thousands of people who are suffering in your country every single day. What can be done?
I would say that instead of put in sanction or embargo on the country. I think the EU community and the UN the community could assist in the way of guidance and the way of giving some suggestions to the country. I don't think any of these embargo and these sanctions would help the country. It will more irritate, and I think more and more when EU and Europe blame the country and the situation, I think Myanmar is turning more towards China, more towards India, and I think the situation cannot be improved by.
Thank you so much for joining us, Cardinal Charles Bo of Myanmar. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for giving us the chance, and all the best.
Pope Francis visits 2 towns in central Italy and encourages Catholic communities there to persevere in living out the gospel.
Mediante la vostra limpida testimonianza cristiana.
During the half-day visit to Tuscany, the Holy Father said he was moved by the warmth and family spirit of the people. Francis also highlighted Our Lady, calling her a woman of faith, courage, and patience. Coming up, the analysis of the deadly protests in Nicaragua and what the Catholic Church is doing. Tens of thousands of people protested President Daniel Ortega yesterday in Nicaragua. It was the latest in a series of demonstrations against the president's attempt at Social Security reform. He planned to slash benefits while raising taxes, but changed his mind after violent clashes between police and protesters. They have killed at least 63 people. One marcher says the president, quote, should understand we are not afraid. Joining us now is Ana Quintana, Senior Policy Analyst for Latin America and the Western Hemisphere at the Heritage Foundation. Welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having me.
President Ortega overthrew a government 40 years ago. Now students seem to be trying to do the same thing to him. Will they be effective?
They could potentially be, because it's not just students right now. It's so many different sectors of the Nicaraguan society that are tired of the corruption, tired of the authoritarian government, and kind of tired of his leftist socialist policies.
I think he thinks he doesn't have to worry about anything. Let's listen to what Senator Ted Cruz said. He spoke yesterday at the Heritage Foundation about Nicaragua. You were there.
To the people of Nicaragua, there will be an expiration date for the Ortega regime.
Is that true? And if so, what can be done by the U.S. to make that happen?
I mean, I think it's definitely been proven that communism has failed, like the 21st century, like war of ideas, right? Like it's inherently flawed. And I think every which way that you try to implement it, whether it's kind of via socialist light or whatever, it's failed. And I think that's definitely what's going to happen in Nicaragua. At some point or another, it's definitely going to fail. And I think Senator Cruz brought up a really good plan that he's put forward. It's called the Nicaraguan Investment Conditionality Act, right? To put human rights-based standards on any sort of U.S. funding that goes towards the Nicaraguan government.
So the funding then would have to be contingent upon whether or not he is killing his people.
Well, pretty much, right? I mean, very basic, simple things: holding free and fair elections, improving and restoring the country's democratic order, reforming the country's electoral system. I mean, the past 3 elections, he's essentially stolen them. So it's only natural that the U.S. government and U.S. taxpayer money that's going towards the Nicaraguan government kind of is going towards a government that's friendly to its people and friendly to the United States.
The U.S. ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, has said, quote, Nicaragua is a fierce society that yearns to be a free society. And she compared it to the tragedy in Venezuela right now. Are there similarities?
I mean, so many similarities. Like, if you look at how Hugo Chavez came into power, he was democratically elected, and within 20 years, he slowly eroded his country's democratic order, that Venezuela is now a dictatorship, right? He changed the institutions, and that's exactly what Daniel Ortega is doing. I mean, the similarities are so close, and Nicaragua is also a very close ally of the Venezuelans.
The Catholic Church is also helping in Venezuela. They are helping in Nicaragua. Is it effective?
I think the Catholic Church has posed itself to be the mediator between the government and the opposition and the protesters. And I think the Catholic Church is an incredibly important institution in the country. And I think, but the Catholic Church can only be as effective as when it has international bodies kind of backing it up, whether it's the United States and regional countries, like-minded countries supporting their efforts. I think that's the only way they can really be effective.
Ana Quintana, Senior Policy Analyst at the the Heritage Foundation. Thank you so much for joining us. A new study from the Knights of Columbus shows widespread opposition to abortion in Canada. Nearly 2/3 of Canadians say they would like to see the availability of abortions limited to the first trimester at most, while 51% say it is unfair for the country to limit its summer jobs funding to pro-choice organizations. The Knights of Columbus supports this program. Up next, growing closer to Our Lady this month of May. And Double Take. These Cardinals are in Rome and playing the part. The month of May is dedicated to the Blessed Mother, and it's a time to explore our relationship with our Mother Mary. Catholics are encouraged to honor Our Lady with special devotions. But how can we, as Catholic women, imitate Mary's virtue and share our faith? Joining us now is Dr. Carrie Gress, author of The Marian Option, God's Solution to a Civilization in Crisis. She's also the founder of Helena Daily, and it's a website for Catholic women. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
There's your website right there. Tell us about that while we have it up.
Yeah, no, this is a site for Catholic women. It's an aggregate site pulling sort of the best there is out there to help the whole Catholic woman, not just theology, but fun things like recipes and shoes and handbags and things to help with your home.
Just because we're Catholic doesn't mean we don't like to shop.
Exactly, exactly. We need all of those things, I think, in our lives. So, absolutely.
What I want to talk to you about today is the ability to incorporate the Virgin Mary, especially in this month of May, into our lives. Mother's Day is on Sunday. What are some of the things that we can do for our mothers, or that maybe we could encourage our children to do for us that aren't as secular?
Sure. Well, I mean, one of the things that I've noticed, this tremendous gap really in the culture between Our Lady as a model of female Catholicism, and then what the world is offering to us as the model of womanhood. And there's this huge gap. And I think that we're seeing that women are incredibly unhappy because of what the world is offering. So it's exciting to see that there really can be another way to bring us joy and peace and all of these great graces that Our Lady wants to give to us. So certainly, you know, there's so many wonderful things that we could give our mothers, like a beautiful rosary, a scapular. There's so many people that are making religious jewelry and other items that could be perfect gifts for them as well.
Back to that sort of feeling like a stranger, to quote Bishop Chaput's book, a stranger in a foreign land. What is it about being in the supermarket that makes you crazy? In a recent article you wrote, "We embrace life, traditional marriage, and Christianity. It strains our relationships and sometimes leaves us wondering how people would react to us if they knew what we really believed, even at the checkout counter."
Yeah, well,
what are you talking about?
I mean, I think every woman's had this experience where you look at those magazines there and you realize, you know, there's probably not one of those magazines that's not going to offend my faith in one way or another, whether it's the ads, the articles, or whatnot. And so it's this feeling of alienation that I think a lot of Catholic women experience, because not only are the values that we hold, you know, not just there, but they're openly ridiculed. And so this is one of the reasons why we're excited to do Helena Daily, because it feels like we need a place where we can just be ourselves and help be formed, but also have these material things that we deal with on an everyday basis kind of be a normal and natural thing.
So coming back to the grocery store, do you hide your faith? Do you just not look at those things? You know, really seriously though, as a woman of faith, do you ever feel like that's what you're doing?
You know, I think I've gotten to the point where I'm not hiding it, but I know that there were years.
Your faith right?
There were certainly years early in my conversion where I think it was something I just didn't know how to deal with. It's not, you know, Catholicism is very difficult to put into a soundbite, and so I think that's one of the struggles with it. But as far as the secular world, I think there are many things. In fact, we take articles from the secular world and use them on Helena Daily as part of the aggregate that we put together every day, the collection. But I don't think that we need to shun it entirely. I think we need to just remember that Catholicism has been the greatest influencer and builder of culture and history, and we need to embrace those things and start looking in that direction instead of shying away from, you know, always feeling like we have to shy away from the material, because we're not an Eastern religion. We embrace stuff and things in Catholicism. And as women, those are important to us on a daily basis. So why can't we find a way to use them so that it builds our faith up instead of tears it down?
Dr. Carrie Gress, author of The Marian Option and also the founder of HelenaDaily.com. Thank you so much for joining us. Happy Mother's Day.
Thank you.
Mother of four, right? Yeah?
That's right.
Okay, finally tonight, EWTN Rome Bureau Chief Alan Holdren ran into what looked like to be some high-ranking Catholic bigwigs, right? But asking for their blessing might have been a cardinal sin. That's because they looked like cardinals, but they're actors. They're extras in a new Netflix movie about the friendship between Pope Benedict and Pope Francis. These lookalikes are drawing a lot of attention, as you can see from onlookers. For all of us here at EWTN News Nightly, to all of you around the world, thank you for watching. I'm Lauren Ashburn. Let's keep in touch online. Follow me at Lauren Ashburn on Twitter and Lauren Ashburn EWTN on Facebook. Good night and God bless you.